morning, evening, or afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to a very special edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I have Tony Robinson with me today. And today, we have a guest who is so committed in his fandom of Accrington Stanley that he has literally moved across the country all the way from Bristol to Lancashire. We welcome Josh on the show, who you may also know as the voice of the WHAM Stadium. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thanks for having me, Phil. Yeah, good evening, good morning, and hello to you all.
Yeah, we pretty well got the day covered. Phil is still, I think it's still morning for you, is it, Phil, or is it?
It's 11:06 a.m. So just into the morning here, and then you're 2 p.m. and then I think it's just after 7 for Josh.
We pretty well got the day covered.
Hey, fantastic.
And now, like we mentioned in the opener, and so you had sent us a little bit of a bio over before the show, kind of telling us about some of the different places that you lived at, and kind of how it led up to you currently being at Accrington Stanley. But so you've lived in Portsmouth and then Bristol and kind of some places in the south of England. I also read that you had family members that supported teams all the way from Leeds to Norwich, and it just seems like you have a very eclectic football background, and then kind of with the dust all settled, you settled at Accrington. Is that kind of how things went?
Yeah, you've summed it up perfectly there, Phil. Myself and my family, football's in our veins. Living in different places, my family coming from different places and supporting different teams. I've always had that from, family members supporting teams in the Premier League, Norwich, Leeds United at the time, all the way down the league. It's been an experience, but once the dust settled, as you said, ending up in Accrington and supporting Accrington Stanley, I think was the best thing best decision that I ever made.
You've got, when you look at, I read that information you sent through, Josh, and I'll tell you, you've got Norwich, and then you've got Leeds and the Blackburn Rovers in your family. I mean, that is quite a cross section. It's not just restricted to one a specific area, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all. My family, the majority of the teams that my family support were places that they were born. My granddad, being a Blackburn Rovers fan, my dad being a Norwich City fan. I was born in a small town, East Anglia, in the east of England. Right. The closest team for myself, football league, or the highest team was probably Colchester United, and then you had kind of West Ham United, moving into London, obviously, Premier League at the time. But I never really had an affinity to either of the teams, really, apart from friends at school, playing for Colchester when I was younger, and School of Excellence and academy side. But I never really had the affinity. And obviously when you're younger, a lot of your family members, they want you to support the team that they supported. So at one side, I had my dad persuading me to be a Norwich fan, buying me Norwich shirts. And, the other side of it, my granddad, kitting me out in Blackburn Rovers shirts. So I always had an abundance of football kits ever since I was a young child. And I think that's where kind of my love for football came from initially.
And now you're mentioning like Colchester, and for our North American audience, that's kind of on the southeastern coast of England. And then as we read through, you ended up after that. You actually ended up in what would be more of the southwestern area, which is Bristol, and that was from what I was reading was your first kind of modern experience of attending an Accrington Stanley game was when they traveled to and played against the Bristol Rovers. Is that correct?
Yes, spot on, Phil. So I'd always kind of followed Accrington Stanley. I'd always had a little soft spot for them, mainly kind of more the northern connection with my granddad, and more just purely liking that the team played in red. I didn't really like, ironically, the yellow of Norwich City or the blue and white of Blackburn Rovers. A lot of my friends at school were Liverpool fans, and I kind of liked their kits and saw Accrington Stanley played in red as well. And when I was younger,
the original Reds, they were before.
Original, yeah. It's a beautiful red as well. It's a beautiful red shirt we've had. But a lot of my youth as well, when I wasn't, actually playing football, was spent playing FIFA. And I became quite good at it. I used to play, tournaments with my friends, online tournaments, that kind of thing. And the way I used to test myself was, ironically, always picking the worst team in the game and, making the settings really hard and trying to play, test myself. And it just so happened, unfortunately at the time, ironically, that Accrington were, rated as the worst team in the game. So I used to spend a lot of time playing as them, learning, finding out who the players were, the likes of, Cav, Proctor, Philly Edwards, Mangy, all in that kind of 06-07 season, playing, as them on FIFA. And that's kind of, where the first love for them came from. Never really, got the chance to go and watch a game. It was a bit far from my family to just be, taking myself. And as you say, ended up in Bristol. And just by chance, I looked at their fixture list one day and saw that they were playing Accrington on the weekend. And I thought, oh, bingo. It's, a great opportunity to go and watch them.
I really understand what you mean about FIFA. And I think a lot of our North American listeners can really relate to that. For instance, there's a gentleman that's been on the show from New Mexico that started supporting Rochdale just because he was using them on FIFA. And I remember for me, when I first started researching Accrington Stanley and kind of decided that they were going to be my club, that one of the first things that I did was I turned on the FIFA game and said, okay, well, this is how I'm gonna kind of find out who the players are. And it was when they were in League Two still at the time, and for whatever reason, the only player that the announcer would say his name when he passed the ball was Scott Brown. So that's kind of how Scott Brown became my favorite player. It's just from the FIFA game.
Well, it's funny when you say, I have a friend that lives in North Bay in Ontario that doesn't know anything about English football but plays FIFA. And he messaged me one day and he said, just to let you know, I've seen you put on Accrington Stanley on your posts and everything. He said, I play Accrington Stanley on FIFA just because I saw the name that you promoted. So it's funny that the other people are recognizing the name from the FIFA game.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic for the club as well, to get the name out there, the biggest, smallest club in the world, it is so true. And FIFA, definitely enhances that, helps you learn the players. It also, they're very accurate, the games, you start learning, which are the skillful players, which are the fast players, which are the hard, tough tackling midfielders. The realism of the game, apart from, some of the images that they use, and some of the players looking absolutely nothing like the players. In terms of attributes, it is very realistic, and you do feel a connection to the club through the game.
What other leg up that Accrington gets on FIFA is that whatever league they're in, they're usually first alphabetically. So when you switch over to that league, they're kind of the default option.
Definitely, yeah. It makes it so much easier when you're trying to make changes, or when you're doing something, you don't have to scroll through every team. They're
the first ones there.
On that, just I got a bit of a beef on that when they go alphabetically. And they put teams with the, that AFC, Bournemouth and that, and they put them ahead of, in alphabetical order. I always think that to me, it should be the main name of the town. But that's just a little pet peeve I have that has got nothing to do with this podcast. So,
well, I think that usually comes down to whether or not the AFC is before or after the team name, because like Sunderland is AFC, but their AFC comes after.
Yeah. I still don't agree with it anyway. But the one thing I was going to ask Josh is because I know when he said he went to see Stanley at Bristol, and then you went to see a lot of course, obviously, where you are when you were in Bristol, there's probably a lot of places you could go and see Stanley on away days. And that's how you probably saw most of your first games with Stanley is when they played away.
Yeah, definitely. It's worked out really well for me as well, because when we were in League Two and when I was living in Bristol, a lot of the division was down south. You had your Exeters, your Plymouth, your Bristol Rovers, your Yeovil. So the journey time, away games were realistically my version of a home game. Newport, it took half an hour to get there. Bristol Rovers only down the road. So there was an influx of southwestern teams in the division, and it worked out really well when I moved to Accrington that, we get promoted and all of a sudden it's a lot more of a northern division. It worked out very well. I was very chuffed with that. And I think my missus, who ended up driving me, all these hundreds of miles to watch, the games, I think she was very pleased as well.
There's a fellow in Nottingham, David Davis, that's a supporter of the program and a big supporter of Stanley. And I think he will probably attend more away games as well, because he can travel a lot easier to the away games than he sometimes can, traveling up to see Stanley. But I guess that's one benefit. You get to see away games, but sometimes you don't always get to enjoy the atmosphere at the WHAM Stadium, which leads me on to the questions of the away stadiums you went to, and then you compare the atmosphere of those to the WHAM. Is there any place that you visited on your away trips that come close to Stanley's atmosphere?
No, not one complete. The only memorable one, I suppose, but again, this is more from a Stanley perspective, and the atmosphere that the Stanley fans created was obviously the Olympic Stadium when we played West Ham. But no away ground I've been to. You go somewhere like Bristol Rovers and the Memorial Ground, and it's silent for half of the game, and the Oval as well, and Exeter. The fans just don't create what Stanley create. When that Clayton end is rocking, and when the ultras get going, there's really nothing like it.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is. There's a lot of things that come into play, but the smallness of the stadium, the intimacy of the size. But you can't without the people in the stadium. You've got no atmosphere, do you?
Not at all. Not at all. Fans make football at the end of the day. That's what football is all about for the fans. It's in the entertainment business. Accrington, luckily, play very entertaining football, so it makes Coley and everyone's job a lot easier. But without fans, football doesn't exist really.
So tell us about now, because obviously, moving up to Accrington and becoming, a big part of the fan base and involved with the club now. Tell us how you came about to be on the microphone at Stanley.
I've got a big gob.
No, but your other qualifications, Josh, your other one.
I think I speak for a lot of Stanley fans. I'd like to see myself as a very passionate person, and I think that reflects hopefully when I'm on the mic. It's much more fun announcing a Stanley goal than it is, an opposition goal. I try and be very monotone when announcing opposition goals and get that over and done with very quickly. And at the end of the day, I am just a fan. Sometimes, I have to pinch myself. I'm announcing all these goals, the substitutions, but, I am a fan at the end of the day. And sometimes that, takes over. As probably a lot of people heard when Seamus Keneally scored this season. And I think I went a bit OTT and luckily gave out the PG version rather than the 18 plus announcement, luckily. But yeah, it's great. I got asked to do it by Dave Burgess. He needed cover for one game, and I said, why not? I love being on the Clayton end. I love, being part of the fans. But I said, yeah, why not? I'll give it a go. And one game turned into 2 games, 2 games turned into 3 games. And he said, look, if you want to do it, there's a job for you. And I thought, well, why not? It's not every day you can, be a PA announcer for the club that you love. So
that's one thing I just wanted to mention for our North American listeners is that the term you just used is PA or public address is usually the terminology we use over here, just so everybody over here was kind of clear. But go ahead, Tony.
No, I was just going to say, I couldn't remember which match that was. Was it Blackpool or Oxford was your first match?
I think Blackpool was my first match, and then I ended up at the Oxford game. The PA system, in typical Accrington fashion, it didn't work. So I had to go into the security box, and every time I spoke, we had to use the overriding system. and it made an awful ding-dong sound every time before I spoke. So that was an experience. And it just so happened in that game that I think before the game I had to make about 10 announcements for people to move their cars and people who'd lost bank cards. So that was definitely an experience having to be in there with the security staff while I'm making all these announcements and then announcing the goals. I think they were glad that I'd gone back to my little box after that game.
I remember being at the Blackpool one because I remember seeing a message go out from David Burgess saying that their announcer was unavailable and they were looking for somebody to volunteer. And then when the match came and I saw you getting ready, kind of thing, and when you did the announcing, and I wasn't the only one who said it around that time. I said the other fellow's going to be he may not get back on the mic because you just seem to. The passion that comes through with the fans and the players, you just seem to have that same sort of passion for getting on the mic and bring something to it. Instead of that monotone, you seem to have some energy in your voice.
Oh, thank you, Tony. Yeah, that's great feedback to have. I mean, I'm quite lucky in the fact, I've mentioned it that, I'm a fan at the end of the day. And I know a few of the people kind of doing it before me were uni students who, were learning, were, experiencing media, that kind of thing for the first time. And that may have been, their first kind of experience of Accrington Stanley. Obviously, I'd had that kind of 10 years prior to myself. And every time, like I said, it's much more fun announcing an Accrington goal and, announcing the Accrington team, trying to, rile up the Clayton end, although obviously they don't really need riling up there.
No.
They're pretty loud and vocal anyway. But, I'd like to think that I just give something a little bit different and, it's enjoyable at the end of the day. Hopefully, I've had text messages asking if I'm still a Cockney on the announcer. So I think I need to work on my Lancashire accent and my Lancashire dialect. I think a few of the Southern teams that we've played have been a bit surprised to hear a Southerner on the mic. But it's just a bit of fun, and it's the most enjoyable experience that I can have. So it's absolutely fantastic, and just really enjoying doing it and being part of it.
Do you have to do a lot of prep for a match, or how do you sort of get yourself all in the right frame of mind?
I think a lot of it kind of comes naturally. I'd always been, one of these people not afraid to, be a speaker. I'm quite, a lot of school was drama and performing arts. So I'd always had that, kind of passion and drive in me and confidence. The hardest thing I'd probably say is the opposition player names. Some of those, the pronunciation, I've probably been quite a bit off. A couple of times I've rang, clubs in the week and spoke to their receptionist and asked them how you pronounce a certain 10, 15 letter surname. So yeah. I think that's been the most challenging. And also where I'm located in the stadium, it's, before obviously Andy Holt does his demolition work again and builds these, fantastic new offices and bars that we're having on my location in the main stand, it's not always the hardest to see. So sometimes a goal has been scored and I haven't really got a clue who scored it. So sometimes you can kind of tell if it's an Accrington goal, if, the ball's been crossed in, you've got an idea that probably Colby Bishop is heading it in, but opposition, goals, sometimes it can be quite hard. So I think that's the hardest part of it.
Yeah, so do you kind of go by the number of the jersey? Is that the main thing that you're looking for?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I'm quite lucky in a sense that my knowledge is quite broad of opposition players anyway. I've always, loved finding out who they are, watching them, even kind of going back to FIFA, I play it every year and you kind of get an understanding of who the opposition are. Shirt numbers is a great help. I sit behind the media guys as well, and they seem to have a better view. Luke, our media guy, is normally 99% of the time pretty spot on with the goal scorer as well. So I lean over and have a look who he's typing on his iPad to announce the goal, and normally we go with that. Some shirt numbers are quite easy to read, but I'm in the Dan Jewell camp. But sometimes, especially with striped shirts, it can be quite hard to see the numbers on the shirt. So sometimes you just have to wing it and hope for the best. But there's not been too many mistakes this season. I feel sorry probably most for Joe Pritchard. I think at the start of it, I announced his name as Jordan Pritchard. I subbed him off at half-time and he was still on the pitch. So I had a laugh with him and an apology that he'd started the game on the right wing and then got left wing, and I hadn't noticed he was still on the pitch. So I'd announced that he'd was subbed off, and then I thought, oh no, hang on a minute, he's got the ball. So there has been some moments, but luckily I think they're few and far between, and I think everyone can have a laugh about it now, looking back on it. So I think that just adds to the fun of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where there's not really an instruction manual on it. You just kind of have to decide what works for you. Because I mean, as somebody watching, I've always kind of wondered that what do broadcasters look at? Do they memorize the face of every player? Are they looking at the number, or like you said, are they kind of looking at this guy plays this position, so that was the right back that did that, so the right back is player X, that type of thing.
Well, one thing I like of what you said, Josh, is that if you're unsure on the pronunciation, you will contact the club during the week. There's too many announcers in this in all fields, and we see it a lot in North America, not just any as well, but where they will really butcher a surname, and that's just lack of preparation. So by doing what you do, you're obviously you want to also you don't want to do the job right, but you want to do justice to the player himself, because there's nothing worse than a player his name being pronounced incorrectly.
Yeah, exactly that, Tony. I think a lot of it is respect as well. These are obviously professional footballers, and we have 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 fans in attendance. So I want to give them the respect to announce the name correctly. And I've also been to a few away games. It's almost becoming a bit of a habit now that before I became the PA announcer at Accrington, I never really kind of paid much attention when I was at away games to what their PA announcer was saying, but it seems to have been a bit of a bug now that when I go to away games, I am listening out and, picking up tips, how they do things. And one of my main bugbear is when they announce, Accrington Stanley's players incorrectly. That does get on my wick a little bit. So I think it's, preparation, like you say, wanting to do the job right, and also just respect for the players as well.
Yeah, I think it's something that, like you say, they've got to a professional level. Just the respect of giving their name right. And I'm sure that you've heard Seamus's name mispronounced a few times on away matches.
Yeah, definitely, and that's probably also my biggest bug on FIFA. When playing FIFA, especially on this game, I don't know how they've managed to do it, but when the commentators announce his name, they call him Keneally, and when on FIFA the PA announcer announces it, they announce it as Connolly. So I'm not quite sure how they've managed to get two kind of sound clips for the same player, but it's always good when the commentators say it because they call him his correct name of Keneally. But yeah, when the PA announces it, for the lineups before the game, he's always Seamus Connolly. So it's almost like we've got two Seamuses playing for him.
Yeah.
Now, I think that right now would be a good time for Tony's favorite part of the show. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, we can go with our rapid fire and see if Josh is up for that.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this part, Tony. Let's see what we got.
All right.
All right, Josh. Tony, you have the floor for rapid fire.
Okay, let's start off with obviously the true and tested one. Mushy or garden peas?
Mushy, all day long mushy.
Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Oh, Beatles, just.
On your bacon sandwich, red or brown sauce? Both. That's the first one, Bill. We got both. Oh,
yeah, greedy. But
well,
if I had to pick, it would be red. Just red.
Do you mix the two together, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'm one of these weird people that the red sauce goes on like the bun and the tea cake part, and the brown sauce goes on, on the filling.
No,
it mixes into a strange concoction, but it's nice. It's I definitely recommend it to anyone listening.
I was thinking, maybe some red and some brown sauce mixed together might be good with some chips.
That's that. You try that first, Phil, and let us know.
Maybe not with the gravy, though.
No, my son actually puts maple syrup on his bacon sandwiches.
Yeah, that's a bit extreme, that, Tony. I've not come to that just yet.
I don't like
I'd never say never.
That's a Canadian thing. Anyway, back to where we're. Oh yeah, would you yes or no cheese and onion pie?
Yes.
With your full English, with or without black pudding?
Without.
Soap operas, Coronation Street or EastEnders?
Coronation Street.
And if in the happy hour at the end of a win at the WHAM, Accy ale or lager?
Oh, neither. I'm a southerner. It's got to be cider.
Oh, whoa. I don't know if we've had cider before either, Phil, have we?
No, that's definitely a first.
Did you watch Sunderland Till I Die?
Yes.
And Tony, we've been asking people Sunderland Till I Die or The Last Dance. Which one did you prefer?
Last Dance for sport and how it captured sport. Sunderland Till I Die just for the comedy value.
I'm going to have to watch that The Last Dance there. I thought it was I didn't realize it was about basketball until I looked into it, because I thought it had something to do with dancing or something. But
you thought Fred Astaire was going to be in it?
Yeah, I thought Ginger Rogers was coming down the steps or something, And I'm going to pull rank on this one. I'm going to Phil normally asks this one, but I'm going to see if I put it in a different order, if it'll get more of a vote. This is a poutine question. If you got your red hot chips, you put some cheese curd on it so it melts a bit, and drizzle some gravy over that. Would you try that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
See, Phil, it's all in the presentation.
Yeah. Well, you should be really the one asking that anyway, because you're the one from Canada. I got to ask about the jalapeno peppers.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you have the jalapeno peppers on your pizza, Josh?
No, can't stand anything spicy. So no, not at all.
Is that because you don't want to get a Heinz burn in the morning?
I hope you got a good sound effect to use with that. I hope you got a really good sound effect for that.
Oh, you've been sitting on that one, Phil, haven't you?
Yeah.
Oh, I wish. Where's my drum set? What about pineapple? Would you like pineapple on your pizza?
Nah, no, I don't get people who put pineapple on a pizza. Unless it's like cold pizza, then it's all right. But I see someone the other day, my missus showed me a picture of someone who put strawberry on a pizza.
Oh, that's like,
when's it going to end? Like, keep it simple with your pizza, guys. Keep it simple.
That's just plain wrong. That is.
That's just when you start turning it into just a different kind of pie altogether.
Yeah, but chips, cheese and gravy is like the best thing ever. Like when I lived down south, you go into like a chip shop and literally nowhere did gravy. And the only ones that kind of like offered gravy, it was like just really watered down Bristol. So that is probably like, apart from Stanley, apart from Accrington, that is probably the best thing about living up north and moving up north. Chips, cheese and gravy, brilliant combination. Whoever invented that, they deserve a knighthood.
See, I like him. I like them.
What we do here, instead of the gravy in Arizona, is we'll do the chips, cheese, and enchilada sauce. So that's good stuff right there.
Oh, I got heartburn. I think one more from me, Phil. Josh, what's your favorite takeaway?
Oh, favorite. Do you know what? There's a place at the bottom of the road called Lala's in Accrington, and they do this thing called chicken parmesan, which apparently is from like the northeast, like Newcastle, Sunderland way. But it's like a butterfly chicken breast, bechamel sauce, loads of cheese and mushroom on it. That's pretty good. Or Domino's. You can't beat a good Domino's either.
Yeah, I tried that.
That's good stuff right there.
I tried that first one. That one does sound good. I'll have to try that next time I'm in Accrington.
Vegetable sauce, would that be what we call marinara sauce over here?
Yeah, it's like I can't really describe it. It's like quite a thick, cheesy sauce. It's
Oh,
it's interesting combination. It looks like it should, when you buy it, it looks like it shouldn't taste nice. And then you start eating it and you think, this is brilliant. Like, it's just another Northern engineering genius putting all that together.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
No.
Okay.
Star Wars.
Star Wars. I think that's been 100%.
And the other one is your 80s band one.
Oh, yeah. Oasis or Blur?
Oasis.
That's pretty close to 100%.
I think so.
There's a really good Oasis cover band called Oasis. You should definitely check them out as well. They're very good.
Oasis?
Oasis. Yeah, they're very good.
I'll have to take a look at that. All right. Well, now that we had finished up with the rapid fire, one thing that we kind of wanted to talk to you about was some football related things. And I think with Accrington Stanley, kind of one of the big stories lately has been, of course, the season ended, and many of the loan players have said their goodbyes. Some players have been released out of contract. Other guys are obviously coming back. So I just wanted to ask you kind of, what you thought that the Accrington lineup might look like going forward next year.
I think we're very lucky next season in the fact that we've got an abundance of young, talented players coming back. Obviously, we've got Toby Savin, the young goalkeeper, who's not looked out of place when he's been playing men's football. We've got Regan Ogle coming back as well, who's had a fantastic season at Southport. Zen Mohammed as well. Again, another young defender coming back from a really impressive loan at Southport. So I think realistically for Accrington, we don't need to panic buy. We're not in a situation at the moment where we're desperately in need of players. I'm sure John Coleman will want to strengthen, as he always does, in all areas for competitions for places. I think that the biggest loss for Accrington will potentially be Jordan Clark, who's I don't think any fan can argue if he does want to challenge himself at a higher level. I think he's been a fantastic servant for the club. I think he's a great person, and not once has anyone given off the impression that he's desperate to leave. I think he's someone that just loves playing football, loves enjoying and he's at the right age now where he's hitting peak form. He's got a lot of experience playing league football now. We've obviously got Sean McConville, who will hopefully be fighting fit to come back from his injury that kept him out the majority of the back end of last season. Up front, Colby and Dion have both done absolutely fantastic. I think a lot of people, it was harsh. Some of the criticism that they had, they've made a massive step up from non-league football, and that's not just on the pitch as well. Obviously off the pitch, it's a complete new area for them both. I know speaking to Colby Bishop, over winter, he said that the hardest thing he's found is training full time. Obviously, when he was at Leamington, he worked full time and only trained a couple of times a week. And I think both of them, him and Dion, have done exceptionally well. They've both adapted to League football and League One football as well, where there's a lot of big teams in this division. And from the teams that they've gone playing against to playing against this season, your Ipswiches, your Sunderlands. Obviously Colby got a brace in the home game against Ipswich. They've both done fantastically. So I think really it's an exciting time to be an Accrington fan. And it's, I think this kind of, what's happened with the season finishing and, the doubt about when next season is going to start. I think luckily Accrington are in a really good position player-wise.
You mentioned Toby Savin and obviously Etomov being released. Do you think Toby is ready to be stepped in to be number one, or do you think they'll bring somebody in and sort of like have a competition to see who prevails?
It's a bit of a dilemma, really. Obviously, I mean, he's the only keeper we have at the club. Obviously, Joe Bursick has gone back to Stoke. And I think the dilemma is that you want him being around the club, be that either in the first team squad or training with them, being in the match day 18, even the experience that he'll gain from that. But then the other dilemma is you also want him playing games as well. So I think Coley's got a tough decision of if he's going to bring in one goalkeeper and let them fight that out between two, or if the season does commence and things start to get back to a bit more normality, would he look at a National League loan for him so he is playing every game? If John Coleman turns around and the season starts and Toby Savin is our number one keeper, then I would not be worried at all. He's a fantastic keeper. I've watched him for many years, and I think he's really developed in the last 12 months, not just as a shot stopper and command in his area, but he's a lot more vocal now. Watching him in the games in pre-season, he really commands his box now, and that's such an important part of men's football. And I think he's done that brilliantly.
Joe, when we interviewed Joe Bursick, he had very high things to say, high praise for Tobin, and predicted really a bright future for him. So obviously, John Coleman, Jimmy, and the staff feel the same way, that he's got a bright future, and hopefully that, like you say, he can step in and get some game time.
Definitely, yeah. I think a lot of the young lads in the squad have got a really bright future ahead of them in the game. Toby's obviously been down to St George's Park in London, training with England coaches. He's had a couple of days down there in December. Regan Ogle, it's hard to forget how young he still is. 3-4 years ago when he made his debut for Accrington's first team, he's been out on loan. He's matured. His reading of the game is when he's out of possession, his position play. The same with Zen Mohammed as well. People forget that these players who've been around Accrington's first team now for 3-4 years, they're still young, they're still learning their trade, and I'd be really surprised if they're not in the first team squad next season and pushing for places and kind of having the same journey that Ross Sykes has had with having that season where he made his breakthrough and then this season or last season now as it's been finished, but really, cementing that centre-back position and making it his own.
You make a lot of excellent points here. One thing I kind of wanted to go back to is when you were talking about Colby Bishop, because he was a guy that we did have on the show, and kind of going back to what you were saying about the joke that he made. I remember a story where he was telling us that basically when John Coleman had called him, that he literally had to put in 2 weeks' notice in his job before he could report to the team. So, I mean, that's the kind of jump that he had to make. And then he already came in, was a double-digit scorer in an abbreviated season. Next year, he's going to have that full year of full-time football, full-time training under his belt. So I'm expecting really big things out of him next year.
Yeah, definitely, Phil. And I think he, epitomises what Accrington Stanley are all about, with these young, proven, hungry players coming through. Colby's obviously, been at academy football with, championship teams, and, for one reason or another, it hasn't worked out for him, and he's gone playing non-league football, and he's got a point to prove, that he is ready for this division, and he is good enough. And I don't think he could have done anything more this season than what he's done. He's been in fantastic form. He's led the line well. I see parts of Billy Key's game in him, the way he holds up the ball. He's not afraid to use his body, use his strength. He takes a lot of knocks during games, from defenders. And I'd love it if Colby went on and, became another legend like Billy Key at the club, because I think he deserves it, and I think he's got it in him.
I think the potential is there, absolutely. And certainly he struggled with some nagging injuries and things like that this year. And I think that kind of goes back to what you were talking about, where, he wasn't necessarily training full time. I think that by next year, when he has that full year of training under his belt, he's probably not going to see quite so many of those nagging injuries, and he'll be able to be at full strength all year.
One of the things I was just we touched on, and you mentioned about, both were saying about, the need for players to come in. Is there the need, and what will you address? I kind of look at it that John Coleman, if there is any additional players to be brought in, he won't be doing that until just prior to the season starts. I think a lot has to do with the dates around the transfer window. and to see who's available, because I got a feeling that a lot of clubs are going to be releasing a lot of players, and that the supply and demand situation is going to come into play, where there's going to be a lot of good players looking for contracts, which in a sense could help Stanley because, with the budget they have, they may be in the market for a lot more of those players than they have in the past.
Yeah, definitely. And Stanley give, players with a point to prove that platform, And I don't think John Coleman or Andy Holt or anyone involved with the club is the type of people to hold players back. Your likes of Caden Jackson, who had an absolutely fantastic season with us, and the stepping stone, he was absolutely fantastic for us as a club. And hopefully we gave him that platform and that exposure to express himself and express his talents. I think that worked really well for Stanley. And I suppose one of the kind of clearest examples of that this season has been Joe Pritchard, who, the back end of last season had was involved in the troubles at Bolton. Before then he obviously, suffered a horrific injury when he was at Tottenham, and he's not had much luck. But he's came into the squad. He's, battled Sean McConville and Jordan Clark for a position in the team. And, when Sean has unfortunately been injured, you want a player to step in and the team and the dynamics of the team and the shape of the team to look like that player isn't missing. And I think Joe Pritchard has done that this season. And I think he's been fantastic.
I agree with that on Joe. I think he's got a big part to play in the upcoming season whenever that starts, Phil, is it okay now I wanted to ask Josh if we could just step over to that thing I've seen on Twitter quite a bit that you're involved with. Could you tell us a little bit about Club 1968?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a new 250 club, or similar to a 250 club. The Supporters Trust had absolutely fantastic success with the online 50-50 draws that we've been running for the past 8 weeks. I don't think any of us on the board could have envisaged how successful would they have been. The reach that they've had, the involvement that we've had with fans, and it's been great fun. Obviously, Jace Graham has been, the vocal point in that with the draws every Saturday. And we wanted to continue that fundraising to raise money for the club and really improve the matchday experience at the WHAM Stadium, which even in, a short period of time over the last couple of years has seen great improvement. What we're offering is the chance for fans to enter. It's £10 per month by standing order, so you pay your £10 a month. And we've got some absolutely fantastic prizes as well, Tony and Phil. We've got £1,000 jackpot up for grabs every single month. For 12 times a year, we're going to be giving away £1,000 cash. And if you don't win the £1,000 jackpot, you've also got 5 other prizes as well you can win. We've got a £250 prize. We've got a £100 prize. And we've also got 3 lots of £50 prizes. So if you're £10 a month, you've got a great chance of winning, some great sums of money. What we also are doing as well is not just giving away all this fantastic prizes, but we're also raising money for the Supporters Trust and in turn Accrington as well. So the people who are spending that money, £10 a month, they're not just contributing to a chance of winning the prizes, but they're also helping us decorate the new bars with Stanley memorabilia, improve the match day experience, buy things, use things on a match day. And that's for all fans as well. So it's a really great idea. It's a really great initiative that the Supporters Trust are running. And hopefully, obviously, I know you two guys are part of it. Hopefully, a lot more people will be part of it as well. And it will, again, be a great success for the great club.
I know Phil and I have signed. I think we both signed up, haven't we, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was going to say. Is so I had gotten the email from Peter Latham the other day, and for our North American listeners, they are still kind of working out how to be able to set up the monthly billing for those of us overseas. So kind of hold tight on that, and we will get information out through the North American Supporters Club as that becomes available. And yeah, Tony, I'm really glad that you asked about this, because this was actually the next thing that I was going to ask about, and what I kind of planned to wrap up our conversation with today, because it is such a focal point of what's going on with Stanley, with Club 1968. And to me, projects like this really just show how far the club has come since, the days when, we've heard about with the supporters club meeting involved, whether or not to spend 20 or 30 pounds on Christmas decorations for the year and things like that. And now, just the Memorial Garden project and the success of Big Steve's 50/50 raffles and, like you said, everything that Jason Graham has done. It. We actually spoke with him. Yeah, he's just done so much with those 50/50s. And then when I got that letter or the email from Peter about the $10 a month, and like you said, some of the prizes that are going to be available, it's just sounds fantastic. And I said, sign me up twice.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. My bank account in England is in dire need of some English pounds to go in. So I'm hoping I'll take a £50 win. I'll take any win, and it's all for a good cause. And if I can come out with a couple of quid in my pocket, then I'm happy.
It's a win-win at the end of the day. And like you said, Phil, with the Memorial Garden as well, that's nearly completed at the WHAM Stadium. It's for the people of Accrington. It's for the fans. It's for everyone involved with the club. And it's been, made possible by, the generosity and the kindness of the people that make the club as well. So I think Stanley are unique in that sense that, the people involved, everyone knows them. Obviously, Big Steve, has helped us massively. His name on this 50/50 draw. Everyone on a match day knows Big Steve. It's something that, he's been, very involved with. The same with Jace. The same with, Darren Woodhead. There's so many people that make Stanley this fantastic club, and everyone's in it together, and it benefits everyone as well.
And with the Memorial Garden project, you can never not mention David Davis, because I understand that he was a very big contributor to, kind of helping that project even get off the ground.
Yeah, well said, Phil. Yeah, David's been a fantastic supporter and a generous supporter as well. And, on behalf of the Supporters Trust, we're ever so grateful for people, from David Davis, everyone realistically that has contributed to that. We are so grateful.
Well, there's another gentleman that got the bug coming to Accrington and, coming to WHAM Stadium, enjoying a Stanley match. And then he realized that was the club for him to follow as well. So there's obviously something more than in the water there and in the air that because people, you get there when you leave, and I had last year, I think it was the Ipswich match. My niece from down in Wolverhampton came with her husband and daughter, and they had such a good experience. They came back to another match and want to come back again. So it's they just said the experience was so enjoyable, more so than going to a Premier League match where it seemed a bit more artificial. So they did something that when you go there, you better be prepared that you're going to have to go back.
Yeah, 100%. And people say to me, people obviously, the whole Bristol Accy Twitter side of things, a lot of people know me through that, and they say, oh, wow, it's amazing that you've moved 300 miles away. We've got Jung Min who travelled 5,500 miles to come and watch Stanley. So it puts into perspective my 300 miles and, what a fantastic guy he is as well, the career fan as well.
Well, and we've talked about this before, about people, the Norway a group come over, the France group, and there's a big following now in Ghana, and there's obviously people in Canada that follow the club, and I'm just fortunate that I'm in a position that I can travel over now for a period of time each year to see some matches, because it's just something that I enjoy and I look forward to, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I can do that again this fall.
Yeah, look forward to that, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm 5,099 miles away. I've done the math, but as soon as travel is kind of back up and running again, it's one of the first things that I'm planning is to make the journey over, because I mean, like Tony said, it really is infectious. I've caught the Accrington bug without even having to actually go there, just meeting and speaking to all the great folks in and around the team. through the podcast. Like what we're doing here today. There's just nothing in the world like Accrington Stanley, and I think that the thing that I wanted to kind of wrap up with, and what impresses me the most is your obvious commitment to your job as the PA announcer, and where you talk about how, like Tony mentioned earlier, you're doing things like going out of your way to call up the next opponent and ask how to pronounce a name, or staying up until 2 a.m. playing FIFA to memorize the lineup or whatever it may be. We love that. The commitment, and I can't wait to hear you in person, as Tony has already had the chance to do.
Yeah, I was there. I can actually say I was there when this career started, so I feel part of history.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, looking forward to you coming over, Phil. It'll be great.
Well, we appreciate you coming on the show, and we always finish up with an on Stanley on. So when we're ready, we'll go on 3. 1, 2, 3. On Stanley on.
Stanley on.